Hey everyone, Reaper here again with my sidekick, Little Reaper. Say hello, Little Reaper. This time, it's a very special video. It's a video in support of Steven, Doom143, and his 700 subs video. Right? Remember Steve, right? Yeah, he remembers. So this video was really fun to do because it gave me a chance to go through some boxes and come up with my top 50 favorite books. I'll talk a little bit more about that, how I came up with the list once the video starts. And I'll give out the shout outs and the rules for the video. So, Little Reaper, what do you say? Should we get this video started? Should we get the top 50 favorites in my collection out there? What do you think? He says yeah. Let's have a look. Say goodbye. Hey everyone, I'm back. Now let's get this video started. This is the contest video for Doom143. Steve, very nice guy. He does a lot for the community, gives out awesome acts of kindness to everybody, but on top of all that, he makes really great videos. He's got an awesome collection, and I think he's just a terrific guy to talk to. So this is his 700 subscriber contest. You have to showcase 50 of your favorite books. It didn't have to be your most expensive books. It could have been just 50 of some of your favorites, and you could have done, I think he was very liberal with what you could have done with that. I'll talk about what I chose in a few moments, but here are some of the things that you need to do in order to enter his contest. One, you have to be 18 or older. Well, I definitely double that. You have to be subbed to his channel, and you have to shout out 3 YouTubers that have under 100 subs. Now, the last time I checked, I believe these 3 were under 100 subs, but if they're over 100 right now, that's great. Just give them a little more love. Lord Tatman, Mind the Comics, and Jeshua Perez. I had the privilege of meeting Jeshua at the New York Comic Con last year with Vince, Semper Fi comic guy. Really, really awesome guy. So definitely check out his channel. I don't think he makes videos as much though. So maybe if he gets a few more subs, it might give him a little bit of a kick in the butt to make some more videos because I know he has some good books. Now let's get started. The 50 that I chose, it's a mishmash of different reasons why I chose them. Largely because they mean a lot to me. They're some of my favorite books, but I did leave out of quite a few. This is a little different than my top 25 key comics that came out a couple years ago, which I'm going to update next year because that list is really outdated. This is different in that, there are a lot of books on here that some of them are just, I like them because of, obviously maybe it's a first appearance or it's a cover or it's a story. That's why they're mainly on this list. Now, the last maybe 3, are probably, because they're in that order because they are, in my opinion, my favorites over the others on the list. But let's just go right into it. So like I said, expect a mishmash of different books in all different sorts of order. It's just because I really like them, and I just wanted to put something together for Steve because I really wanted to show support for his contest and his channel. So, as you can see right now, Tales of Suspense number 57, the first appearance of Hawkeye. Yeah, this, like Steve said, expect some long videos. This is probably going to be a long video, so let me apologize for those of you that don't like long videos ahead of time. Fantastic Four 48, the first appearance of the Silver Surfer and Galactus. I was so happy to finally add the first appearance of the Silver Surfer in my collection. This next book, Tales of Astonish 44, this was on my last comic book haul that I put out a week ago, number 21. Tales of Astonish 44, first appearance of the Wasp. This one was Kamiko Primer number 2, the first appearance of Grendel. I got this book at the New York Comic Con in 2014. I was very happy to get that. That was one of the books that I was gunning for, and I was happy to find it in such a high grade. This was also from that con. Vault of Horror number 16. This was my first Golden Age book. And what a way to bring in my first Golden Age book with an EC comic. That's how I got into comics. I started reading, as you can see in the back here, that's always in all my videos, the EC collection for Tales from the Crypt, The Vault of Horror, and Haunted Fear. And that's what really got me interested in comics, and to, get a Golden Age book, which I always wanted, to get a Golden Age book of some of the, the early books that I read, was really fantastic. To finally see it in color and to have it, in the palm of my hands, it was really awesome to have. So, Vault of Horror number 16. Cool cover, by the way. This was also my last comic book haul. Bizarro. I remember seeing this cover in the Wizards The Dark book that came out over 20 years ago. It was a collection of, it was like a tribute to all the villains. And I remember reading up and seeing this image for the first time in that book. Love it. Just love it. Bizarro. He just looks so creepy. And when you read this book, I actually liked the story in this. I thought it was kind of funny when the only girl, well, really the only person who happens to be a girl that was willing to give Bizarro the benefit of the doubt was blind. So I thought that was a pretty cool story. Pretty funny, too, when I first found out she was blind. It's another favorite of mine. X-Men number 12, first appearance of the Juggernaut. Give me a moment while I get these out of the way because they're starting to pile up. So like I said, you'll see a bunch of X-Men together, Spider-Man together, then you'll see more X-Men later on. It's just really all mishmash, like I said earlier. X-Men number 3, the first appearance of the Blob. This was one of my first Silver Age books back when I started collecting in March of 1993. I wanted to get some early X-Men because that's, that was the series that I was really interested in at the time. And this was the only one I could afford, as early as I could go back. I don't remember how much I paid, but it was definitely under $50 for it. So it was really nice that this was one of my earliest X-Men books for a long time that I've had in my collection for, 1993? 24 years, something like that. So it's really cool. Here we have another one from my recent comic book haul. The ones from the recent comic book haul really are important to me, especially this one because of the cover and what it, how iconic it is. It's such a beautiful cover, and I used to watch people's videos, and I used to go to cons and I would see this book, and I was just like, wow, that is so cool. That is something that I would love to have in my collection just for the cover alone, and to finally add it in my collection was, pretty important to me. So that's why it's on this list. Albedo number 2, the first appearance of Saga Yojimbo. I was introduced to Saga Yojimbo with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I used to collect when I was a kid, and I still have them, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Playmates figures. I remember seeing the episode where Usagi showed up on the show. He showed up on a few episodes. And, I always associated him with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And, I've known about him since the 80s. And to have his first appearance, which also happens to be a pretty rare book in my collection, and also happened to be on my top 12 list for 2017. It was actually on my top 10 list for 2016. I never made that video, but I couldn't get it in 2016. So finally be able to get it this year was really something. Here's a book that I need to upgrade and that will be upgraded in 2018. The Amazing Spider-Man number 3. As you can see, it's, it's pretty beat up. But I've had it since January 1996, and I paid $50 for it. The guy wanted $75, and I said, "Will you take $50?" And he said, "Yeah, sure." But it is missing that pinup in here. I found out recently through talking with Gotham Comics, so that bummed me out. But that's okay. It will be upgraded. Another book I intend to upgrade next year: Amazing Spider-Man number 4. I've had this since September 1996. I graduated high school back then, and my sister got me this as a graduation present. This also came from September 1996. This was a graduation present to myself. I've always loved this cover. I've always liked Electro. I know sometimes he's seen as corny with that goofy mask, but it's a comic book. Cut it some slack. Not all comic books have to be, you know, grungy and real life, like, you know, Sin City and all those other books like that. You know, it's a comic book. It's fun. The villains are colorful, and I never looked at the character as, you know, a relic from the 1960s costume villains. I've always thought that Electro was a cool character. You know, he could shoot electricity from his hands. That's awesome. Now we get to some Batmans. I'm sure we'll come back to Spider-Man a little bit. But let's go here with this classic Neil Adams modern age Joker appearance in Batman 251. Really, really cool. Now this is on, now how could this not be on my list? This is another book that I love because of its cover, but you know, it's Night of the Reaper. That's me, I'm Reaper. So naturally, Reaper has to be in here some way or another. Really cool book. I love the red and all that stuff, and it's really awesome. And you know, we just get this out of the way. Here's another classic Neil Adams cover, one of my favorite covers of all time. Of course, the swipe of the very famous Detective Comics 31. Here we have Batman 227, the Demon of Gotham's Mansion. It's a little awkward. I think I've mentioned this before, and other people have too. A little awkward having extra Robin on the side. It would have been better if they just blacked that out. Here we have the first Bronze Age appearance of Two-Face, another classic Neil Adams cover. I got this at the New York Comic Con 2014 from Zap Comics. I know this book is pretty hot right now. Batman 181, it has the pin-up intact. This is the first appearance of Poison Ivy. I forget whose video I was watching recently. It was Nick's, ETA Nick's. He said that, you know, this book is really hard to find in a high grade. He did the auction recap video recently. You know, he always highlights great books and gives great commentary on them. Not a big fan of the cover, but yeah, it's really cool to have. I'm very happy to have Poison Ivy in my collection. And here's another awesome Infantino cover. The first Silver Age, which is really the third appearance of the Scarecrow. Love this cover. Love the Scarecrow. More on him later. Alright. We still have a big pile. We have two piles. I'm saving the CGC books for last. I didn't want to have a CGC book and then a Raw book. So I just piled up all the Raw books, and then I piled up saving the CGC collection stack for last. Here we are. Amazing Spider-Man number 300. I got this, I believe, what date was it? I believe, yeah, now I know. It was December 30th, 1993, on a Thursday night. There was this hotel off of Route 9 here in New Jersey called the Budget Motor Lounge that would have monthly or bi-monthly, or not bi-monthly, yeah, I think maybe bi-monthly comic shows. And I went there that night. It was a night one too. That's what was so awkward about it. I think it was from 5 to 9 or something like that. I went to this con with my parents, and I really didn't have too much money saved up, and I was kind of depressed. And I was looking around, and we saw this one, which I really wanted, and it turned out my dad got it for me. So that's how I got the first full appearance of Venom. 1993 ended very, very well with adding the first full appearance of Venom to my collection. I try to have give you a little story for some of these books, not just because, oh, I like the cover, but sometimes the meaning goes a little deeper, you know? Well, with this one, how could you not like the cover by the awesome Jim Steranko? I like Steranko a lot. I'd love to meet him. And this would definitely be a great book for him to sign. This is the first appearance of Lorna Dane as Polaris. She made her first appearance as Lorna Dane in X-Men number 49. But this is the one where she shows up as Polaris, and this, I think, is the far superior cover, and I believe, yes it is, this is also the first X-Men comic where you have the familiar X-Men logo that Steranko redesigned. I never liked, let me show you, because this is the next book on the list. Here we are. First appearance of the Sentinels, X-Men number 14. Pretty high-grade book. I love this book, but I never, like, getting back to what I was saying earlier, I never liked the X-Men logo. Back in the early 60s, they had something, the design of some of their logos with, like, it looks like it's being ripped out. You know, you have the X, and then the Mighty Thor with the O, it looked like it was ripped out. Some of them just look so stupid. I mean, I think that the best logo back from the early 60s, other than the Amazing Spider-Man logo, was the Fantastic Four. I thought that was really designed well. But I was never a big fan of the X-Men logo until Jim Steranko added some flair to it. Let me get these out of the way before we go on to our next X-Men book, which is X-Men number 4, the first appearance of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. First appearance, the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants being Toad, Mastermind, Quicksilver, and the Scarlet Witch. I think these two obviously shine in this book because they're Avengers in the movies, and that's why I think this book is highly sought out. But this book, in my opinion, was always sought out. I always wanted this book. Even when I first started collecting, when I wanted it, remember when I showed that X-Men number 3, I wanted this one, but it was a little too much money, so I went with number 3 back in 1993. So when I finally got this book in 2014, some 21 years later, it was a treat. Definitely was a treat. Yeah, everyone's going nuts about this one. This one, in my opinion, everyone should have been going nuts about this book for, like, ever since it came out. That's an awesome cover. I mean, come on. And it's the first appearance of Jean Grey as the Phoenix. That is such a sweet book. Sweet book to have in any grade, in my opinion. Another great book. Kyle Waka showed this one off in his video. X-Men 94. This is the book that it sort of started it all. It started it all for the regular series, where the X-Men, were redeemed because, the X-Men previously, they were in reprints for about 5 years, up until, from issues 67 to 93. And, in the 60s, they weren't that popular. They didn't really find their footing in the 60s. Now, don't get me wrong, there were some good books, no doubt, but they really didn't find their footing until Chris Claremont took over. And I'm sure we're all happy he did. Here we have some more Spider-Mans. Amazing Spider-Man number 238. I like the Green Goblin, but I've always liked the Hobgoblin. Excuse me. Sorry, I got a little tongue-tied. The Hobgoblin more. I've always thought he looked a little cooler than the Green Goblin. I thought he was a little more intimidating than the Green Goblin. The Green Goblin looked goofy to me. But that's no big deal because, like I said with Electro, those costume villains from the 60s, you take it for what it is. But the Green Goblin just never really did it for me. He just never really seemed that intimidating. And, I know he was a big Spider-Man villain. I like him, but I've always just liked the Hobgoblin. For me, the Hobgoblin, the mystery on who he was, just kept going for years. And he just was practically in every issue up until Venom showed up. Because the Hobgoblin was the main villain for many years with The Amazing Spider-Man. And then when he was killed off, which I think was awful, Venom took over as the main villain for a while until he became too popular, and then, we got to other characters like Carnage and so forth. So, love this Gil Kane cover. Love Morbius. This is a book I've had for many years. This I upgraded to this book back 2 years ago. But I've had the first appearance of Morbius since 1993, September 1993. So to upgrade it in August of 2015 was a treat, upgraded to this. So very happy to have this book in my collection. Here's another book I've had since 1994. It's got a little tape over here because it was a little ripped. But other than that, it's a nice, sweet book. Presents really well. Amazing Spider-Man number 50. Even back then, it was a it was a book that was very expensive back in 1993-94, at least for me. So it was really nice to have it. And of course, it's the iconic John Romita cover of Spider-Man No More. I showed this off in a recent video. Amazing Spider-Man number 13, Mysterio. Like I said, I like those old costume villains. Even though some people say he looks goofy, I think he looks great. I think he looks fine, but that's just me. I've always liked Mysterio, and this is his first appearance, and I'm very happy to have this book in my collection. It's been in my collection since September 1993. And here we go with one that you've seen in my videos many, many times. The first appearance of the Punisher. This was the first comic book that I felt that I bought in February, early February 1994, at a comic book convention in Woodbridge, New Jersey at the Sheridan across the street from Toys R Us off of Route 1. Like the Budget Motor Lounge off of Route 9, which was about 5 minutes away, the Sheridan would have these monthly or every few months or something like that comic conventions, and that's when I got this. And this is a high-grade copy. I would say it's a 9.0. With a press, it'd probably be a 9.4, in my opinion. But I try to grade conservatively. Try to, not always. Because I'm no expert. But it was nice to finally get a high-grade, very important book in my collection. And this added legitimacy to my collection back then. This is another book that I am super happy to have. It has a story behind it. For those of you that are interested in hearing about that story, check out my last comic book haul, number 21, Strange Tales 110, the first appearance of Doctor Strange. I remember seeing this cover for many years, and when I looked at it, and I saw it said The Wizard and Paste Pot Pete, it took me a while to say Paste Pot Pete without getting tongue-tied. But the Wizard, I was like, oh, are they referring to Doctor Strange? But I didn't realize at the time that, no, the Wizard was actually a villain. Doctor Strange, I love the story. I love his intro. There are very few intro stories from the Marvel age, like Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, so forth, that I actually enjoyed reading their first appearances. This is one of them. I thought it's just right up my alley. A guy having nightmares. He seeks out Doctor Strange, who is reputed for helping people with these sort of things, and he enters the man's dreams, and he discovers Nightmare, the character Nightmare, causing these nightmares. So I loved the story, and it's one of the few Marvel Silver first appearance books that I enjoyed the first appearances. I did not like X-Men number 1, which you'll see later on in the list. I like the book. I like the characters. I like what it means. It has meaning for me, but the story just didn't really do it for me. But this is definitely one of the origin stories that I really, really enjoyed. And I'm also very happy to have this book in my collection. First appearance of Doctor Strange. It's awesome. Now, here we go. World's Finest 3. You've seen this in a bunch of my videos. Ultra Batman Haul number 1. That was comic book haul number 13. First appearance of the Scarecrow. Yeah, this is awesome. Like I said in many videos that I've showcased this book in, it doesn't get enough love. It's the Detective Comics 73 that gets all the love. And, I can understand why. It has a way better cover. But this is the Scarecrow's first appearance. And it's my oldest book in my collection. This goes back to, the fall of 1940. I don't have any books older than that. Batman. We're entering the Batman realm now. Again, Batman number 59. The first appearance of Deadshot. Yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about that. It's cool. I like it. Low-grade copy, but, who cares? Not many people have it. And I wasn't going to pass on what I paid for it, I'll tell you that. Give me 1 second as I get the CGC collection ready. And this is where this thing becomes a pain in the butt. So just bear with me. There we go. You see? What'd I tell you? The Tomb of Dracula number 10. The first appearance of Blade. I love this book. I was so happy to get it. It's like I'm so happy to get a lot of these books. I don't recall ever saying, you know what, I'm so pissed off I got Tomb of Dracula 10 at an 8.0. The books that I may have said that about are no longer in my collection. I've sold a couple of things, but this is definitely a super book. And it's first appearance of Blade, much different than the movie version. I think the movie version's a lot better, but and now that's been adapted into comics. But yeah, it would be nice to see Blade again in comic in a movie. I'd love to see that. I love the Blade movies. The third one was okay, but the second one I think is the best one. The first one I really like too. There we go. Let me see, you're not getting a glare. Yeah. Maybe if I just don't use this. Let's try that. Is that better? Nah, don't look that better. This is Detective Comics 400, the first appearance of Man-Bat, another classic Neil Adams cover. I like Man-Bat. Back in the early 90s when the animated series was on, I never even heard of Man-Bat. Because, I wasn't as big a Batman fan back then. I knew the Penguin, I knew the Riddler, I knew the Joker, of course, because I watched the 66 series in reruns after the 89 movie came out. So I didn't even know who the hell Man-Bat was. Yeah, this is not working well. Works well for raw books, doesn't work well for slabs. Here we are. Alex the Comic Hoarder just got this for a really good price. What'd you get it for, Alex? Like $25? Can't go wrong, man. Batman, this is my only PGX slab. Batman 171, the third appearance of the Riddler. It's often called his first Silver Age appearance, which it is. But it's in truth, it's his third appearance, and a classic cover, pink cover. I don't recall too many pink covers. So it's so cool to see. But yes, another Carmine Infantino cover. Here we have another Batman going back to 1948. While this was on the stands at that time, so was the Detective 140. They were on sale at the same time. This, of course, is Batman 49, the first appearance of the Mad Hatter. I love the Mad Hatter. I thought he was hysterical on the animated series, voiced by Roddy McDowall, who is famous for doing the original Planet of the Apes, and quite a few other movies. He was in Twilight Zone, which I love that series, so I like the way he portrayed the Mad Hatter. A little different than what the comic counterpart was. Here we go. This is another hot book due to Josh Whedon's Batgirl movie coming out whenever. This is the first appearance of Barbara Gordon as Batgirl. Detective Comics 359. Classic cover, and another cover by Carmine Infantino. He was really banging them out in the late 50s, early throughout the 60s, wasn't he? Alright. Here's another one. That's a classic one to have. Talk about classic covers, right? Giant Size X-Men #1. This is the book that really started it all. Like I was saying with the X-Men 94, that brought the new X-Men into the regular series. But this is the one that's created the blueprint for that. This is the first appearance of Thunderbird, Colossus, Nightcrawler, Storm, the new team, and the second appearance of Wolverine. It's also the first appearance of Colossus' sister. She wasn't magic yet, but she did show up in this book. He saved her from the runaway plow. So that is her, but I don't know if that's the one that everyone, thinks about when they think of first appearance of magic. What is it, New Mutants? I don't even know if I have that one. Walking Dead #1. I have the black print variant. I was planning to sell this book, but then I sold a couple of my Walking Deads. But I still have a few of them, a few good ones left. And you know what? I decided to keep it. Why not? It's Walking Dead #1. And it's the version that I like, the black print one. There are stories on which one really came out first, and I think the black print did come out first. That there's no debate about that. But I don't know. I like the black print one, and that's why I decided to keep it. Because I got rid of my Walking Dead #1, the white print one, in order to get another book, which you'll see later on. X-Men #2, always love this cover. Always love the red covers with the yellow. It really pops. It has a golden age feel to it with the color scheme. Nothing can stop the Vanisher. You know, I don't even know what the hell happened to the Vanisher. You know, they could have probably done some things with him, but you know, they were just starting out with characters like this. They didn't really establish themselves too well, the early X-Men. The big villains, of course, from this era were Magneto, the Sentinels, the Blob, Mastermind, and all the characters like that. So, but I don't think they really did too much with the Vanisher. He was part of what's the name of that supervillain team back in the 60s that bothered the X-Men? Factor 3 or whatever? You did see him a few more times, but I think he sort of faded into obscurity in modern times. That's too bad. I would like to see them do a little bit more with him. Still got a few more. Need I say more about this one? This is the first appearance of the Swamp Thing, the original Swamp Thing, which is I think his name's Alex Olsen. The Swamp Thing that appears in Swamp Thing #1, I think, is obviously the more popular Swamp Thing, the one that was in the movies, and the one that's in the series today. I can't even say that, but he was definitely the Alan Moore Swamp Thing. But this is the famous Bernie Wrightson cover. It's awesome with this creature sneaking into the bedroom, not knowing that the lady here, not knowing that was actually her lover before he turned into Swamp Thing. Great book. Grab a couple more here. Journey into Mystery. You've heard me talk about this one. I've showed this one a few times. Journey into Mystery 85. First appearance of Loki. First appearance of the Bifrost Bridge. First appearance of Asgard. First appearance of Heimdall. I believe it's a cameo of Odin, even though CBCS just says first appearance of Loki, Heimdall, Asgard, Odin, and Bifrost. So. But I think Odin makes his first full appearance in the age number 86. Great book. Lots happening. Loki is sort of like the Magneto of Thor world. You know, character just keeps coming back. Sometimes he's okay, sometimes not so okay. Batman #232. First appearance of Ra's al Ghul. How could you not like that cover? Ra's al Ghul, another famous cover by Neil Adams. Awesome. Really cool character. And very happy to have added it to my collection. Winding down, we still have quite a few more left. How could I not put this one on my list? First appearance of Daredevil. Daredevil #1. Really cool book to have in anyone's collection, especially with the Daredevil series doing so well. And finally, I feel that Daredevil is being taken seriously. Although, you know, we as fans probably took him seriously for a long time. But, you know, when they make a movie like the one that came out in 2003, which it was okay, you know, but I don't think it was received too well. But then when they take that and create a TV series that's so good, it sort of makes Daredevil a mainstream character again for fans and, you know, fans that, you know, or new fans, you know. The Incredible Hulk 181. It's the first full appearance of Wolverine. For those that didn't know, it's definitely one of my favorites. I talked a little bit about this book in length in a previous video. You know, that I had a few of these over the years. My first one was missing the Marvel stamp. I didn't know anything about a Marvel stamp. I bought it back in April of 1994. So what the hell did I know? It wasn't until I saw the missing piece, and then years later I found out, yeah, it was a Marvel stamp. And it was common for a lot of the books that came out in 1974, including the Amazing Spider-Man 129, for have that stamp removed. So definitely awesome. Now these last few it's where we're talking about. These are truly some of my favorites over others. And you've heard my story about this, my Batman 121 first appearance of Mr. Freeze, who was called Mr. Zero at this point, intended to be a joke villain until he got some credibility in the Batman the Animated Series. He got screen time in the 66 show, which officially turned his name to Mr. Freeze, but he didn't get, I don't think he got the respect he has now until Batman the Animated Series. So it was really cool. It was a long journey for Mr. Freeze, and he deserves it. Credit he has. Love this book. Said it many times before. This brought legitimacy to my Batman collection. Hands down. Last three. Detective Comics 66. The first appearance of Two-Face. You know, I love this book. I really do. Even though it has some restoration, it's a very high grade. And when I got this book, actually it was a couple years ago, even though you didn't see it until January 2016. I've had it longer than that. I think the guy who bought it, and he even told me that he really dealt with Silver Age Spider-Mans, but this came up for him to buy, and it wasn't selling, and he just wanted to get rid of it. He tried to get rid of it for a long time, and people weren't just buying it. I guess they were spooked by the restoration, you know, which I can understand. You know, a lot of people don't like restoration. That's fine. People rather have it in its original form. But I don't know too many people that have an 8.5 unrestored Detective Comics 66. So I was very happy to find 8.5 restored, and the guy, you know, he really, really wanted to get rid of it, and the price that I paid for it really showed that. So I think I was at the right place at the right time, you know. It was much different than what he was selling it for when he first started selling it, from what he told me. You know, I take him at his word. He's at the New York Comic Con. That's where I first met him. So he's a nice guy. Last two. I mentioned this before. X-Men #1. Now, it's true. I did not like the story in X-Men #1. I just, you know, it just didn't really do much for me. But I liked the book, if that makes any sense. This was a book that when I first started collecting, that I wanted so bad. And I had a coverless copy that I paid $35 for. I recently sold it, which helped fund some books you're going to see in future hauls this year. But, yeah, I mean, it was a dream to get this book, man. You know, and finally get it signed by Stan Lee. You know, I wanted to meet Stan Lee, and, you know, this was the book I wanted him to sign. You know, I'd much rather him sign my X-Men #1 than my Incredible Hulk 181. You know, for different reasons, of course. But yeah, I mean, you know, it's a 3.0, so it's not the highest of grades. You know, there are people out there that have higher grades and better books, but for me, this is an important book. It's in my collection, and it's a keeper. And it's definitely number 2 on that list of my favorite books. And by now, come on, if you don't know what number 1 is, you haven't been watching my videos. I mean, really, you haven't been watching my videos. But that's okay. For those of you that haven't been watching, here we have the first appearance of the Riddler. You know, this book, I hear it's hard to get. I don't know how hard it is to get. I mean, it took me a while to get it, so maybe, yeah, I could confirm that. I see these books on eBay, and I think, you know, in my personal opinion, I think they're a little overpriced. But then again, though, it's a Golden Age Batman villain. You know, whenever you have Golden Age Batman villains, Batman is definitely one of the gold standards in comic books, along with Superman and several others, Wonder Woman. So whenever you get your chance, you know, the Batman villains, I think, are higher than all other villains because they were made famous from the 66 show. That's what made a lot of these villains famous. I mean, they were famous, of course, to comic book collectors and comic book readers. There's no doubt about that. But to the public eye that knows nothing about comics, these characters became household names. And the Riddler, I feel, is one of them, through to the 66 show. Just as the Penguin, just as Mr. Freeze, just as the Catwoman. people know who these characters are because maybe they saw the 66 show or they heard of the 66 show and they've seen pictures from the 66 show. It's very iconic seeing Adam West in that costume, and the people that he fought were these villains, and the Riddler was the first villain he fought on that show. And so it's really not a surprise why people really want this book and why it's so damn expensive. Now, before I close this video, I remember I mentioned I had 2 copies. If you saw my, I believe it was Convo Call number 3, where I did that shitty Halloween theme, I showcased my Walking Dead books. One of them you saw in this video. The other one was the white print mature readers. Well, that's no longer in my collection. You know the reason why? Because of this book. And I don't regret it one bit. Even though it has a slight restoration over here, I don't care. This was my Grail book. And a book that I thought I would never get because I thought it was just too far out of reach. You know, there are a lot of books that are out of reach, and this was one of the ones I really wanted, and I was able to get it, and that is why it is number 1 on my favorite list. If this was a top 25 key comic books video, this would not be number 1 because there are other factors that make another book number 1. But being that I chose to go with what my favorite books are, this is number 1. That holds this one above all else. Once again, Doom143, he makes great videos. He puts out a lot of content, and it's always quality. It really is. The guy's got a great personality, and I really did like those Jean-Claude Van Damme intros, I have to say it. When I first saw them, I was like, what the hell is this? And then when I saw it again, I'm like, okay, I'm starting to dance along with it. Steve, keep up the great work. Thank you for watching again. Subscribe to the Doom143 and everybody else. Keep collecting, keep watching, keep supporting everybody in the community. Take care, everyone.